is friendly? Let's take a look at that this week. We're going to be exploring different ways that you can make your music studio's site welcoming and usable for all users, including those with disabilities. So, this session is going to be perfect for anyone who is interested in creating a more inclusive online space. And just to let you know, are you going to need a lot of savvy tech knowledge in order to implement these tips? Nope, just a little time and a little patience. And I do think it's worth mentioning that in addition to making your website friendlier for all users, these tips today, these accessibility tips, are also going to enhance your website's SEO, which will make it more discoverable to a wider audience. So we're going to be going through 3 tips today, and I'm really excited to share them with you all. But before we do that, let me take a little music break while we make sure that we're going live in all the places and spaces. While I do that, please be sure to say hello and let us know where you're tuning in from. Oh, welcome. Ooh, you get to see a little behind the scenes magic. Okay, let's actually get onto the screen here. Okay, welcome everyone to the Savvy Music Studio broadcast. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Campbell. I am a business marketing and mindset coach for music studio owners and online ed experts just like you. And most Wednesdays we go live where we talk about those topics. And today we're going to be digging into a little business and a little marketing because we're talking about websites. And we're going to have a couple more broadcasts that are focused on website tips this month here at Savvy. So stay tuned on that. One of the reasons we're doing this is because we're actually doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff on our own website. And so I thought, why don't we take the knowledge that we're learning and share them with you all? So let's get moving and grooving here. I see there's a few people tuning in. Hey there, Christine. Nice to see you. She's tuning in from Baltimore. Karen is tuning in. And she will be teaching virtually today. All right, excellent. So we're going to go through 3 ways in order to make your website more accessible for all users. And I have set up some resources today, including links to some of the things that I'm going to demonstrate that you can use. So if you'd like to get a hold of those things, you can drop the word access down below if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram. And Instagram, exciting news. I can now bring your comments up on the screen. At least that's what they tell me here on eCam. So I'm excited to test that out today. If you are watching on YouTube, please go ahead and look in the chat or look inside of the description of this video, and you will have access to those things there as well. And so let's unpack this issue. Right. So as I mentioned at the top here, we are doing some behind the scenes work here on the Savvy website. And, it's something that any business owner needs to keep an eye on because, depending on the website that you're using, things can break. And when you thought you had everything set up and all your fonts were the way you wanted them and headers and all that stuff, maybe a plugin gets updated and then it screws everything up. Well, so we've kind of experienced a little bit of that. It's nothing security wise, but it's mostly just the way it looks. So we're going through and doing a little of zhuzhing up and, doing some copy rewrites. And I thought, what a great opportunity to talk about websites. So February is going to be website month here at Savvy Music Studio. If you have any questions about websites, drop them down below. Maybe we'll consider them for a future broadcast. So the issue that we're looking at today is how can we make our site accessible to all your users? So if someone is sight impaired, making sure that they can see or hear what is on our website. So we're going to be talking about ways that you can ensure that your website is readable for everyone. And it's not just those who are sight impaired in the traditional sense. There are many people who just have a hard time reading things on websites and on digital screens. And so there are simple ways that you can enhance your website to make sure that it's legible and readable and accessible. So we're going to go through all of those today. Hey there, Shirley is tuning in from Cantonsville. Nice to see you, Shirley. So good to have you here today. All right, let's make sure that we bring up the right screen here. I think we're going to, because we're going to be doing a bit of screen sharing. So we're going to get to our I got the right stuff here. All right, so let's do this. So the first tip for accessibility, we're going to talk about font contrast and text readability. So there's two different things that we're going to discuss here. So when it comes to font contrast, we are talking about the contrast of the font with the background that is behind it. So we want to have a high contrast between our text and our background to aid people with visual impairments, and also to just make it readable for regular people. Because if we don't have a good contrast, and I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like, you'll see that it does make it quite hard to read the content. And I get it, it's fun to play around with colors and things like that, but when you do play around with colors, let's be really careful and make sure that we're choosing colors that are easy on the eye. So I'm going to use a really cool tool here to show you how you can check your contrast on your website to make sure that all of the text areas are legible. Hey there, Pete. Yay, so good. I love it when savvy friends meet. He says, hi, Shirley. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do a little screen sharing. This is a tool that one of the very many tools that we use in our branding class that happens every fall. And this is one of my favorites. This is called Coolers, and we're going to demonstrate how we can test the, let me get the right thing open here. We can test the ratios. So the ratio that we're looking for, the contrast ratio, you may want to write this number down, is a 4.5 to 1. And that is the ratio that we want for normal text, thinking paragraph text, to ensure that it's readable. So let's demonstrate what that looks like right here. Okay, so the website that I'm showing you is called coolers.co, and if you want access to the links that I'm showing you today, just drop the word access down below if you're on Instagram or on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, it'll be in the description. So you can see here, they have this testable area where we can see what does it look like when I use these colors. And then they're going to give you a rating down here, both for small text and for large text. You can see this has a really nice high rating. So this is legible. Now look at what happens when we adjust things. And let's say that we used a blue that it doesn't look that far away from this blue that we had over here. I think we were right here. But if we lightened up that blue a bit, all of a sudden we have dropped below the 4.5 rating. Now that is considered poor contrast, especially for the small text. So one of the things that you can do is that you can take the colors from your website and plug them in here to make sure that it's readable. Like for instance, I do happen to have one very light color as part of my brand. It is this, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like a celery green. And we have to be cautious when we're using this color because we certainly would not want to use white text on that background. Look at the rating for the contrast. It's very, very poor, even for the large text. So for this, we have a tendency to use 32, 32, 32, which is a little bit of like a softer black, and it gives us an 8.78 rating. So I encourage you to take a look at your website, head on over to this tool. Again, you can get access to it. If you go to coolers.co, you can find it, but I can send you the link directly. Just put the word access down below. So this is one of the coolest tools. You'll also find here that it has information around the web content accessibility guidelines. So if you ever wanted to check that out, it gets much more in depth. But we're just going to kind of scrape the surface today. So let's come on back. here. All right, so everybody with me so far? Who here is ready to start checking the font contrast of their website? Let me know if you are on board and you are going to be testing the things with us. So let's come back to this font readability. Okay, so we've talked about the contrast, making sure that the background and the text color are good together. And then let's talk about fonts. Let's talk about font readability. And actually, it's funny. You know what? I did this incorrect. Let's fix it. It should be text contrast and font readability. Okay, so font readability. We're talking about the typefaces, the fonts that you are choosing for your website. It's really important to choose the right fonts. And I do a lot of website audits for clients, and I have found there are some people using, not because they had no idea that they had chosen a font that was hard to read. They probably chose it because it was pretty. I have been there myself as well. So let's go over some rules for the fonts that you want to choose. First, we want to choose fonts that are very legible. And we want to avoid using lots of fancy style fonts. And I'm going to give you some examples of those for paragraph text. The paragraph text on your website should almost always be what we call sans serif. That is, sans serif are the types of fonts that do not have the little feet on them. And we also want to make sure that the size of the font is at least a 16 pixel. That is the standard for UI, that's user interface design. And so check your sites, make sure that your fonts are large enough. One of the reasons I'm redoing some stuff on Savvy is because we've noticed that with some of the plugin updates and things like that, some of our fonts actually got a little bit smaller. So we are going to go through and ensure that all of our fonts are at least 16 pixel. I think we're aiming for 18. And y'all, I mean, you see these Coke bottles that I'm wearing, and I'm also 42, so girl needs to be able to read her own website. Let's just be honest. So let me show you some of the fonts that we should avoid. Let's talk about those fonts that we shouldn't use on our websites. All right, so I brought up a lot of different styles of fonts to avoid, and here are some of them. Okay. I looked at probably like 10 different blogs about this, and I thought that this was the clearest one. And they're saying, like, here are the fonts that are they're one of two things. They're very hard to read, or they are overused, right? So fonts for headings that we probably should not use would be things like Trajan Pro. Curls, that is also a very difficult one to read. Jokerman, I don't think anybody's going to be using those. Lobster, although I love you, let's not use you on the website. I think this is probably the worst font that I've ever seen, and I would love to make jokes about where you would use it. So we have Bleeding Cowboys. Papyrus, that is a definite no. This font is ancient, and it is not appropriate for websites. And then they have a lot of other fonts. Hey, avoid these. This one was a little surprising to me. Brush script. We see a lot of people who use these or things that are scripted. Just make sure that it's easy to read. And if you are going to use some type of a scripted font, use it very sparingly. Use it for short headlines, never for paragraphs, because it's very difficult for people to read. And, you know, this goes on and on about some of the things not to use. Things like shadowed text, that's almost impossible to read, right? That's going to be very difficult. And ransom note. Let's just say that we're not going to use ransom note on a website. I love this comment from Heather. She says, I'm immediately changing all my fonts to Bleeding Cowboy, maybe bolded for good measure. Thank you, Heather. That cracks me up. Okay, so please be careful with your fonts. All right. If there are any questions about text contrast and font readability, drop them down below and let me know what they are. We'll address them at the end. Let's head to our second point. And our second point here is, let's talk about navigation. So I found this section to be really interesting, and it's having me rethink the headers on my website to make sure that it's, you know, really user-friendly. So what we want to do when it comes to headings and labels, we want to ensure that our website is easily navigable. Navigable. That's a hard one. So we're going to organize our content in a very clear and descriptive language, because if somebody is using a screen reader, it makes it much easier to navigate your site more effectively and understand what they're looking at if we use really good descriptive language. Because if our headings or maybe labels for forms or buttons or links do not include descriptive text, people won't know what they're actually clicking on. So, for example, it could be that on your website you have a button on your homepage that says click here, right? But there's other text on the page that says, kind of implies that when you click on that button, you're starting the process to book a lesson or to book a call or to purchase a product. Instead of using the words click here, we want our language to be clearer, saying book a session or submit payment. Because if someone's using a screen reader and they're trying to check out a product on your page, or they are trying to find that first step in order to start their child having lessons with you, they need to know, what button should I press? So let's avoid the terms click here and make sure that we're using that really descriptive language in all of our headers, labels, buttons, and links. Hey there, Sharon's tuning in from Detroit. Nice to have you. I'm still waiting around to see if anybody sees us on Instagram. I was really excited to see if I could bring up the Instagram comments today, but nobody's on Instagram yet. I'll keep checking. Okay, so that second tip there, pretty simple, but also might be a little time consuming, because if you do have to go through your full website and you have a lot of pages, you're going to want to check out all your headers and make sure that you're editing things appropriately. There's more to say about headers in terms of website navigation in the and thinking of user interface, because you want to think about, there's header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, but that's a little bit too advanced for this particular conversation here. It is something that I dig into when I'm doing website audits. So if anybody's ever interested in getting information about a website audit, let me know. All right, let's keep on moving and grooving. We have one more tip to cover today, and I think this is a fun one. Okay, so we're going to talk about alternative text. So alternative text is often referred to as alt text, and alt text is a meaningful text that is assigned to an image. And this text is meant to convey information or function that is going to be read to users who might be blind or visually impaired, or if they have low vision. So we want to make sure that all of the images on our sites have alt text, because if somebody's using a screen reader and the screen reader is telling them what's on the page, when it comes to an image, if there's no alt text, they are not going to get that information. So I'm going to show you a cool way that you can develop alt text if this is something that's new to you. You can actually do this on Canva. So let me bring up my screen for this. Okay, this is a fun little tool on Canva. It's part of like the AI tools that they have rolled out this past year. And if you have an image on Canva, for the majority of them, one of the things that you can do is you can click on, I right-clicked on this image, and you're going to scroll down until you find this button that says alternative text. And you can yourself write what that text is going to be, or you can actually ask the AI to do it. So I haven't tried it with this image before. I'll be interested to see what it says. Let's see if it works. A cartoon person sitting on top of a paper airplane. There we go. Brilliant, right? So that I can save that alt text, but that's not going to be what you need to do for your website. So on your website, what you will need to do is you will need to go to each image and assign alt text, and you want it to be descriptive. So if you have a picture of children gathered around a piano at a group lesson, you'll say that. Like 5 children gathered around a piano during a piano group lesson. Not only is this alt text going to give people who are visually impaired information about the image that the screen reader is describing, it is also going to increase your SEO. So let's discuss how that happens. Coming back to here. Alrighty. So, let's say, for instance, if an image does not load, that they're going to see alt text on a website, but also Google will read the alt text, and that alt text, if you are using the important keywords that you want to associate with your website. And when I say keywords, I'm talking about the words that people might use to search you. So things like like piano group lessons, or preschool music classes, or singing lessons, or piano resources, or piano games, then having that alt text there is going to boost your SEO rating. I use something called Yoast SEO. I'm a WordPress girl myself. And with Yoast SEO, it will give me ratings on the SEO on my page. And I have in the past, when I've written blogs, forgotten to do the alt text. So I go down and I look at this rating for the SEO, and it'll go like, boop, Sarah, you didn't write your alt text. You need to write alt text on all of your images. And it will even suggest that I use keywords. So if there are any WordPress users out there, highly recommend Yoast SEO. It is one of my favorite tools. All right, so I think that we've gone through all of the tips today. If there are any questions about what we've gone through in terms of access and accessibility and making your website more friendly, now is the time to type them below. And I'm going to do a rapid recap. But before we do that, I do want to mention website audits are something that we provide here at Savvy Music Studio. It's something I'm really passionate about doing because I know that your website is a really important place because when people are referred to you by other clients, they will often go to your website to check you out. Or if you are being found by people through search, your website is the welcome mat. And it is important to make sure that your website is effective. And if you are noticing that, let's say, you're not getting a lot of website traffic, or you are getting traffic, but it's not converting, people aren't clicking on, whatever that first step is for you, or let's say you are getting website traffic, they're clicking on the things, and you've noticed that like nine times out of 10, it is not a good match for your services, then getting a website audit could be really, really helpful for you. And if you do want to get information about that, if you drop the word access down below, the Savvy Sarah bot will send you a link where you can check out our website services and get all the information about what's included with these comprehensive audits. So check that out sometime. And let's do our rapid recap here. Drum roll, please, for those who know that it is so much fun for me to try to cram like 25 minutes of content into 3 to 5 minutes. All right, let's do this. Oh, before I do the recap, I wanted to do a quick shout out here. Super shout out to Angela Holmberg McGann, who became our 700th subscriber on YouTube. We have officially broken past the 700 subscribers. And also thank you to Courtney Saylor, who subscribed this morning as well. We are now up to a 705. You guys don't know how much that means to me. I remember when the channel had 50 subscribers. So the fact that we're at 705 now feels amazing. And I'm so honored that you all are joining us on this journey. If you have not subscribed on YouTube, just look up Savvy Music Studio. That's where you'll find us. And let's do this. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Let's explore some of the ways that you can make your website more accessible for all users, including those who have disabilities. It's really important to make sure that your website is readable to everyone. So here are 3 ways that you can ensure that it is easy for people to read your website, and you are creating a more inclusive online space, which, by the way, benefits your business not only in terms of being inclusive to all, but also it boosts your website SEO. So, if you want to make sure that your website is accessible, we need to ensure that you have good text contrast and font readability. So text contrast refers to the contrast between the text that you're using and the color of the background behind it. We want to make sure that that ratio is 4.5 to 1 for paragraph text. There are great tools out there that you can use in order to check that. My favorite of which is called Coolers. And that is, they have a little contrast checker that looks like this. You can plug in your colors and you can see whether or not it is a good fit. So make sure that those fonts, the color that you are using is not going to interfere with your background. It's super important. The next thing, let's talk about font readability on your website. It is important that you choose fonts that are readable. And I know that there are some fonts out there that seem really exciting and they're all brush scripty or fancy looking, and you might want to use them on your website. But take a pause, because let's just be honest, things like Comic Sans, Papyrus, and Bleeding Cowboy, if you haven't seen it, look it up, are not good fonts for your website. So make sure that you're picking fonts that are website friendly. And if you're not sure if your fonts are website friendly, you can Google it and you can find all kinds of blogs that will list the types of fonts that will be the best ones to use on your website. And also make sure that once you've chosen your fonts that you are ensuring your paragraph text is large enough. The minimum size that they suggest for UI design, that's user interface design, is 16 pixel. Any lower than that, and it becomes very hard for people to read on both desktop and mobile. All right, next, it is important on your website to make sure that it is easily navigable with very clear headings and labels, because if someone is visually impaired, they are going to be relying on a screen reader to read that text to them and let them know what is the important information. So if you are using things like click here for a button, that's not telling anyone what that button does. We need to make sure that any of those interactive elements on our website are labeled with descriptive language. So instead of saying click here, you might want to say things like book a session, because that is much clearer language. Finally, the images on your website are very important. And we want to make sure that all of the images that you use on your website have alternative text. Alternative text is descriptive text that tells a reader what that image is. And we want to make sure that the text is describing it accurately. So if you have a bunch of kids around a piano as one of your images on your website, provide alternative text for that image. And you can say something like 5 kids gathered around a piano for a group piano lesson. Not only is this going to ensure that visually impaired people are allowed to read that and understand what's happening on the page, it also boosts your SEO because you are using keywords that are important, like group piano lessons. All right, that is it for today's broadcast. If you want to watch the full one, if you're just watching the recap, just let us know down below. Drop the word access if you want to get a hold of any of the things that we've discussed today. And if you are interested in learning more about the website audits that we provide here at Savvy Music Studio, just reach out. That is one of the services that we provide. So if you want your website to start rocking, reach out. We can help. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. We will be back next time. And in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you. And let's play a little outro music. Bye, everyone.